The daily word for Sunday, November the 22nd, 2020, is forgive. And the affirmation is, in the peace of prayer, I release all unforgiveness. If I hold on to feelings of hurt, betrayal, or anger in response to another person's words or actions, I block the flow of divine love and peace in my life. Likewise, holding on to guilt, shame, or embarrassment that may arise when I have hurt another person also keeps me from experiencing divine love and peace. Forgiveness removes all barriers, all obstacles, anything that may be disrupting my experience of the divine presence. In order to forgive myself or another person, I need not justify or approve behavior that is unwelcome. I need only to become willing to forgive. In the peace of prayer, I release all unforgiveness. I feel the healing power of divine love as it dissolves all barriers, all illusion of separation. I forgive and I am healed. The scripture reading is taken from the 6th chapter of Matthew, verse 12. And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. So, are you all ready for Thanksgiving? My husband is going to, what's the word? Smoke. We have a smoker. He is going to smoke a duck, which is defrosting in the refrigerator as we speak. We'll see how that goes. So, the history of Thanksgiving Day is much more complicated and I think much more interesting than the simple story I learned as a child in the 4th grade. The story I learned then, and you're going to recognize this, you could all tell this story easily. In 1619, the Pilgrims, fleeing religious oppression in Europe, accidentally landed in the wrong place way north of their destination in the New World. They settled in anyway, and half of them starved to death in the first winter. Then the Indians helped them out and taught them how to farm the new land so that they produced good crops, and they were expecting to survive their second winter in good shape. So the Pilgrims decided to devote 3 days to thanking God for their survival and prosperity by throwing a big party to which the Indians were invited. And that's the story of the first Thanksgiving. Remember that? Well, a more complete story of our Turkey Day goes like this. It begins with Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation, which he started in 1517. Instead of the feast days mandated by the Pope, as a matter of fact, at that time in history, the Catholic Church had something like 90 feast days during the year, in addition to the 52 Sundays. And on those days, everyone was required to A, not work, and B, go to church. So the Protestants changed that, and they said instead of the feast days mandated by the Pope, they developed a practice of dedicating days of prayer and fasting during calamities such as war, plague, or famine, and then days of thanksgiving and feasting in response to surviving a plague or a famine, or in honor of a military victory. Okay. Now stick with me. I know this sounds like I've gone way off in left field, but I'm really not. One such important victory was the Siege of Leiden, which was part of the struggle by the Protestant Netherlands for independence from the Catholic Holy Roman Empire. Among the victims of this siege were Protestant pilgrims. They were there. The Netherlands prevailed and eventually gained recognition as an independent nation. So after the siege, the survivors in Leiden, following the Protestant tradition, had a Thanksgiving feast. This Thanksgiving feast, to celebrate the end of the Siege of Leiden in October of 1574, became the first, what?
Thanksgiving.
Oktoberfest. It became the first October, and they still, in Leiden, they still celebrate surviving the siege. The point I'm getting to is that the Pilgrims did not invent Thanksgiving Day in 1620. They arrived in the New World with a long established Protestant tradition of feasting and giving prayers of thanksgiving after deliverance from any calamity. So this year, when I always do every talk fresh. You're never getting last year's talk. So this year, when I did the research for this talk, I noticed a new element in the materials about the establishment of Thanksgiving Day as an official holiday in the United States. It seems that today many people have a negative attitude about Thanksgiving as a national holiday. I ran across strong opinions decrying the origins of the first Thanksgiving. They point out that Europeans slaughtered and enslaved thousands of American Indians. They condemned the Pilgrims, reporting that the Pilgrims believed that they were not missionaries, but holy warriors with a divine mandate to establish God's kingdom on earth in the New World. And therefore, they felt justified in the wholesale slaughter, what today we would call ethnic cleansing, of the indigenous people who, understandably, resisted. In fact, the first Europeans in the New World not only slaughtered, but also enslaved thousands of indigenous people many years before the beginning of the African slave trade. Therefore, it is argued there should be no Thanksgiving holiday because it is rooted in evil. While I'm not a historian and cannot judge the validity of these assertions, I think I can reasonably point out that this kind of analysis can be applied not just to Thanksgiving, but to every aspect of Western civilization, going back 4,000 years to Abraham, who waged holy wars in the name of his God. And 600 years after Abraham, Joshua, who was Moses' successor, fought the Battle of Jericho, remember, and the walls came tumbling down? Well, Joshua was the leader of an invading army. And 200 years after that, Jerusalem became the capital of Israel only because King David invaded and conquered the Jebusites. And 500 years after that, what we now call the Middle East, which includes Israel, was conquered by the Persians. And then the Greeks under Alexander the Great, and then the Roman Empire, and then the Islamic Ottoman Empire, which eventually lost power to the Allied forces in the World Wars, World War I and World War II. So, towards the west, the Roman Empire conquered England, but abandoned it when their empire was being invaded on other fronts. Then the French conquered England a thousand years after that in the Norman invasion of 1066. Eventually, England became the British Empire, and it went around swallowing up countries and maintaining possession of their colonies by military might. So we know that war has always been a big black mark on the soul of humanity. And so also has the horror of slavery. The Hebrew scriptures, the Christian scriptures, and the Quran all condone slavery. They all contain regulations on how slaves should be treated. And slavery continued throughout the world until relatively recent times. It was legal in England until 1833, but the British slave trade with other countries continued after that until the 1860s. The slave trade was an important part of African economy even before the arrival of the Europeans, and the African leaders resisted anti-slavery agreements imposed on them by the European powers until 1850. And France allowed slavery within its colonies until 1905. So, in light of the review, this short little tiny taste of history, everything that I've said, you know, is vastly more complicated. A lot more happened. But it is a little glimpse at the dark underbelly of human history. It appears there is no tradition that cannot be linked in some way to an ancestral group whose actions were wrong and should be condemned. Bringing these crimes against humanity to light is the current trend in academia, and strong currents flow through the social media and political discourse. And you probably have heard echoes of that, right? Haven't you? So, in light of this trend in current scholarship, should we kill Thanksgiving Day? Raise your hand if you want to kill Thanksgiving Day. Nobody? Okay. Well, I would suggest that the country or group or organization with no blood on the hands of its ancestors throw the first stone. History is also full of persons and groups whose goodness and benefit to humanity is breathtaking. From Jesus and the Buddha to the unsung heroes of the Underground Railroad to Schindler's List, we have evolved and our ideals have grown ever grander. The world has recently recognized the unfairness of hereditary monarchies, as well as other forms of dictatorship, and embraced democracy. There's only like 3 countries in the world today that don't claim to be a democracy. Now, a good number of them claim to be democracies and aren't really, we know. But the point is that democracy has become the norm, and even dictatorships will at least claim to be a democracy because that is the accepted best practice. One of them, I don't remember the countries, except the only country I remember is the Vatican. The Vatican is a country that is not a democracy. Okay. Class, caste, and the subjugation of women were the universal norm until very recently and those norms were enforced by law. But they are no longer accepted, and their vestiges are slowly being erased. So we can look at history and bemoan the depravity which humankind is capable. Or we can appreciate how far we've come and celebrate the goodness that is all around us. We can decide. We can choose to make Thanksgiving a time to be grateful for all our blessings, for wonderful friends, and loving family. Now, last week, my message was on mindfulness, a practice based on present moment awareness. Because the road to inner peace, the road to enlightenment, does not go through the past. I believe that the benefits of mindfulness can benefit both the individual and society. It's one thing to study history, your own or world history, so as not to repeat past mistakes. It's another thing to entirely let yourself be defined by your mistakes, or to define anyone else, any other group or individual, by their past mistakes. Just as we greet each other every Sunday with, "I behold the Christ in you," we should choose to see the divine presence in the present moment, in our joys and successes, in our struggles, in our world and in our affairs, and of course, in the faces of our friends and family members. So, I invite you to join me in choosing an attitude of gratitude as we enter into this Thanksgiving week. But wait, there's more. I point out that there are numerous scientific studies that support the many benefits of being a grateful person. Scientists tell us that becoming a grateful person can transform your life. And so here's a short list of 7 scientifically proven benefits to being a grateful person. First, gratitude opens the door to more and better relationships. Thanking a new acquaintance makes them more likely to seek an ongoing relationship. Let me say that over. Thanking a new acquaintance makes them more likely to seek an ongoing relationship. So whether you thank a stranger for holding the door or send a thank you note to a colleague who helped you with a project, acknowledging other people's contributions can lead to new or deeper friendships. Second, gratitude improves physical health. Grateful people experience fewer aches and pains and report feeling healthier than other people. Not surprisingly, grateful people are also more likely to take care of their health. They exercise more often and are more likely to get regular checkups, which is likely to contribute to longevity. Third, little quiz. It's just keep your answer to yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rank yourself in overall happiness? If you want a quick boost to your happiness scale, gratitude will do the trick, because gratitude reduces a multitude of toxic emotions, from envy and resentment to frustration, guilt, and regret. Studies have shown that gratitude effectively increases happiness and reduces depression. Number 4, gratitude enhances empathy and reduces aggression. Grateful people are more likely to behave in a pro-social manner, even when others are less kind. Grateful people are less likely to retaliate against others, even when they are given negative feedback. So when someone says, "You were wrong," you say, "I'm so grateful you pointed that out." they expensive they experience more sensitivity and empathy toward other people and a decreased desire to seek revenge. Number 5, grateful people sleep better. Spend just 15 minutes jotting down a few grateful sentiments before bed, and you will likely sleep better and longer. Number 6, gratitude improves self-esteem and reduces social comparisons. Rather than becoming resentful toward people who have more money and better jobs or better looks, which are major factors in reducing self-esteem, grateful people are able to appreciate other people's accomplishments. Number 7, gratitude increases mental strength and resilience. It not only reduces stress, but it may also play a major role in overcoming trauma, including post-traumatic stress disorders. In short, there is ample scientific evidence that developing an attitude of gratitude is one of the simplest ways to improve your satisfaction with life and lift you upward on your happiness scale. Of course, as true students, we strive to have an attitude of gratitude, not just on Thanksgiving Day, but as a part of our daily spiritual practice. In one of his lessons, Eric Butterworth says, instead of a Thanksgiving Day, we ought to have a complaint day. Spend one day a year on your complaints, and then spend the other 363 days, 64 days, giving thanks. Unity is always taught that we have the ability to cultivate gratitude because we have the ability to choose our thoughts. I personally am so grateful for discovering Unity and its beautiful path, which has always emphasized the importance of gratitude and thanksgiving. Gratitude is just part of the ongoing project that we all have. And I'm referring to the Change Your Mind and Change Your Life project. Regardless of how we may feel, we always have the power to choose our thoughts. We can entertain thoughts about the things in our lives which cause and therefore magnify negative emotions, or we can choose different thoughts. We can decide to list and appreciate our blessings. From the Christ of our being, we can bless every challenge as a growth opportunity and choose to see the divine in every person. By making the choice for gratitude and thanksgiving, we know that we actually increase and manifest our good. Just as Jesus gave thanks for a few loaves and fishes, blessed them, and then fed 5,000 people, our thanksgiving for our blessings causes them to miraculously increase and multiply. That is the universal law. Like the Pilgrims, we have suffered through a hard year. All of us have been touched in some way, either by the loss of a friend or relative, loss of income, loss of opportunity, or the stress of living in quarantine. I quickly decided that when I pronounced my vows, for better or for worse, I really wasn't thinking in terms of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But like the Pilgrims, we choose to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccines will begin distribution before the end of the year. Effective new treatments are available and more are being developed. Like the Pilgrims in 1620, we expect next year not only to be a better year, but a great year. And we are so confident that we are today celebrating the tomorrow that we have chosen to manifest. So I end the lesson with the admonition of Paul the Apostle to the Philippians. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Amen. So be it. And so it is. Okay, thank you. So I just want to remind you that Wednesday we are having a meditation as usual, but it's going to be a special Thanksgiving Day meditation. And weather permitting, we're going to have it outdoors. And it's going to be Kathy Moulton's debut as a singing bowl player. So please come out and join us at 7 on Wednesday. Bring your lawn chairs or instead you can bring a yoga mat. And if it rains, we'll come inside, but we're expecting good weather. So let's stand for the peace song with Namaste hands.